What's up guys, Eric here and welcome to the channel. In this video I'm going to show you how to wrap a headlight with VVivid's new Ultra Gloss Clear Holographic Headlight and Taillight Tint. Alright, so I'll start with a piece that I've cut off big enough to cover the entire headlight front to back, and then over the top side of it I've also already gone ahead and cleaned off the headlight itself. You can see it's really clean. It is an older headlight, so I do have some imperfections in there that I just can't get out from regular cleaning, but that's beside the point. It's fully cleaned and ready to go. I've got my piece cut out. I've got with me a heat gun ready for a heat source and my kit on my side, which includes squeegees, knives, and buffers. So go ahead and kind of get this in place where I want it to be. I'm going to go and start to peel off the backing paper here. And with this film, instead of a paper backing, you can see that it is a plastic based backing that has the nano air or micro air release pattern built onto it, which provides the micro air release pattern on the film itself. I'm going to go ahead and peel the whole thing. So this is the backing. As you can see, it's plastic instead of paper like traditional vinyl wraps typically have in the past. Okay, so I'm going to get my placement check here. This also still has the protective cap on it, the plastic protective cap on it that it protects it during shrinking, or it protects it during shipping, but also protects it during install because you can leave it on while you're installing. So what I'm doing is tacking down the vinyl in the flattest area here, making sure that I have I'm going to make full coverage all the way across, over the top and the back. I can pick this up, it's repositionable, just like regular vinyl wrap, even though this is a headlight and taillight tint. This is basically just a clear vinyl wrap for all intents and purposes. Alright, so I just laid down the flat area first, and this has a very low tack adhesive on it. You can see it picks up really easily. Where I just laid down, I could still pick it up with fairly easily. So what I'm doing is I'm just applying this big flat area here, and as I start to come around the curve, I'm gonna start thinking about adding a little bit of heat and stretch to get this around the curve. Plus this area right here is a bulbous shape. So not only is it a curve, there's a big round bulb right in the middle before it gets back here where it turns flat again. So just knowing that, I'm going to have to add a little bit of heat to this to stretch this out. I may actually chop away some of this excess material here because I don't want too much grabbing elsewhere and binding me up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Taking just my back splitter knife. If you don't have one of these, you can just use your regular knife or scissors. Just be careful. And that will reduce the amount of grab that this film will do, because when I do heat the film, the adhesive starts to flow a little bit more, making it stickier, so it will grab onto more things, will grab onto surfaces better. Even though it's low tack, it'll grab onto surfaces better while it is warm. So I'm going to try this first with the protective cap on. Turn my heat gun on, make sure it's warm. Since this is a holographic film, I don't want to kill it with too much heat because you can damage it. The holographic effect that's built into the vinyl. Okay, so all I did is warm up the film. I'm going to try to glass this out over that bulge there. You can see the bulge right there. See these horizontal wrinkles here. I'm going to try to pull those up and down to flatten out those wrinkles. Start tacking this down here. And again, I still have the plastic protective cap on this, so it may be restricting some of the things that I could be doing. And so if I find that it's just causing too much issues, you can take off that plastic protective cap and apply it without it. Totally fine. Your choice. may be easier without it because it doesn't restrict you from applying as much. It is stretchable with the film, but not as stretchable as the film. So I'm going to go ahead and pull off this cap. You see I got only a little bit further so far. So I'm just basically going to, where I have the flat area, I'm just working it towards where I stretched it, where I stretched it out towards the bulb. You can see I'm just working it down. And because I had this horizontal stretch, I can pull up and those wrinkles go away. So this is the curve, and you can see, you can kind of see my finger hit this brown bulbous area right there. So what I'm doing is just feeding this vinyl into that bulbous area. May need to add a little bit of heat again. Top side here, just a little bit to warm it up and soften it. And then I can take my squeegee buffer and lay that down. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom part here. Since I do have a horizontal stretch, I'm going to try pulling it downward a little bit to get rid of those wrinkles and try to apply the vinyl onto this bottom part of the bulge here. Notice I'm holding areas where it's excess because I don't want to put my fingers behind it and possibly leave fingerprints on this clear vinyl, which will show through since it is clear. Now VVivid says that you can, if I read correctly, VVivid does say that it's okay to hold behind that and the fingerprints will not show, but I'm just erring on the side of caution here. So I'm going to add just a little bit of heat on the bottom part there, like I did on the top, to help me lay this down a little bit more nicely. And just a little bit, just to warm it up. Just like this. I don't want to create any sharp wrinkles. So I've got it down to about here. I'm going to bring this back up, make a nice rounded, I don't know, wrinkle if you want to call it. But basically I want to get it set up so I can keep this whole area so that any stretch that I do is going to be equal. Yeah, just warming it up a little bit, nothing too crazy. And then I'm going to continue the same process as I did the first time. Try to toss this out as best I can. Okay. So I have these horizontal wrinkles here. So if I pull upwards, tack that, and downwards, they'll go away. So let me try doing that right now to get this over that hump. And you can see I'm using my fingers here to help spread out some of those wrinkles there. So now I've made it over the hump, basically right in the center, down to the bulge, and then it becomes flat-ish again over here. Get that off of that. So for this bottom part, I'm going to give it just a kiss of heat to warm this bottom half up, so that I can, it popped off. That's that low tack right there. Okay, make sure that is pressed on pretty good as I can. I got these sharp wrinkles here, so I'm going to see if I can just clean that up before I try to apply, make it a smoother line versus a series of sharp wrinkles. Just give some heat, and with the wrinkles going this way, I'm going to pull downward and this way, just like that. Make sure I apply all this down into this bulbous area right here, kind of a recessed area right there. Make sure it's laid down nicely. just going to try to finish off this bottom portion of the bulbous area first, before I tackle the top side. And you see I switched to my harder edged part of my squeegee for some of it to help press out those wrinkles a little bit more easily. Kiss this bottom part with a little bit of heat just to allow it to conform down at the very bottom a little bit better. Same right here. And I'm trying to, it's a little awkward for me trying to install this because I'm trying to stay out of the way of the camera so you can see what it is I'm doing. Okay, now for the top side, I essentially do the same thing. I'm going to give this a little bit of heat on top. To help allow it to basically smooth down. You see I'm kind of just rolling this over that bulb shaped part of the headlight. A little wrinkle right here. Clean that up. Alright, so I've made it over the bulbous part. Now I'm on essentially the flat part of the vinyl. Now, because I did have to stretch in this section here, what I'm going to do is give this a little bit of heat to relax that, so that when I apply this part of the vinyl, it's totally relaxed and tension-free. Again, just a little bit of heat to let it shrink back, get rid of that stretch that I had put into it. Let it cool for a couple of seconds here before starting to try to apply this. And I'm just going to apply this right down in the flats. You can see I'm kind of doing half moon or crescent shaped squeegees here, and that's because I'm trying to follow the curvature. Even though this looks flat, it does have a slight curve around it. All right, so this headlight is for all intents and purposes wrapped. Now we just have to do the trimming part. But before we do that, because there's some tension, as you can see around some of the edge points there, I want to bring it back just a hair and heat it to get that stretch or tension out of there, out of those areas in particular. So I'm just heating that with a little bit of heat, letting that stretch come back. And then once it does, let it cool for a couple seconds. Then I can just lay it down right back to the edges. It's totally stress-free. Okay, so I'm getting a little bit of binding right here because of this bump on my bumper. So I'm going to create just like a relief cut here and here. I did kind of a U shape so it doesn't split into the vinyl if it tears. So I'm going to continue to heat this again since it cooled down too much. And then I'm going to just finish laying it down at the very bottom of my headlight edge. Got a little bit of binding right here, again because of my bumper. So I'm going to cut this to create a relief so that I can lay this part of the vinyl down without any resistance, because the rest of this vinyl was pulling against that, wouldn't let this go down. Now this is its own tab, free to move up and down without being restricted by this and that bump in particular holding the vinyl. Kiss it with a little bit of heat. You notice I'm just doing these really small short bursts of heat at low, just enough to warm up the vinyl so that I can work with it, and I'm not overly heating it because I don't want to damage the holographic properties of the vinyl. So I'm going to keep doing this all the way around. was no tension here on this side because of the flats. I had already pre-shrunk any stretch or tension out of there. This area here, you can see these wrinkles here are being formed and being, this bump right here is causing a tension line. So to alleviate that and allow this to come back, I'm going to go ahead and cut this out so that way this is its own tab independent of this. Just checking the cameras. Okay, so I'm going to bring this area back since there is a little bit of tension. Just a little bit, not too much. Give it some heat to allow it to shrink. Any shrink that's at that edge to shrink. Just going to hold it here. I'm not pulling on it, just holding on it. Just allow it to cool. And then lay it back down. That way your edges have zero tension right here, which will eliminate any pullback. Another bump from the fender kind of causing a tension line right here, so I'm going to cut this away, just like that. That way this tab, this area can come down without any issues. So here, since I laid that down, there should be no movement. There's no jumping of the vinyl or clawing itself back together right there. So, which is exactly what you want because you don't want any tension at the edges. Just double checking the bottom side, make sure it does the same, i.e. no movement. And it's not doing any movements here. Take out any tension that might be down here, which should be very minimal because this is where I laid without stretching at all. And then this top part here, there was no stretch at all there, so absolutely no issues of movement with the vinyl there. Just make sure I got it on my edges lined up, and I'm just going to cut right on the edges here. Alright, so now I'm ready for cutting, and what you'll want to do is make sure that your blade is as sharp as it can be. Snap off a new blade tip if you haven't already, so your knife is sharp. I'm just using this VVivid knife with 30-degree blades on it, and so I'm just going to find the edge and float the tip against the edge of my knife, against the edge of the headlight, and just use that as my guide. So I'm essentially right now cutting this, so I'm pushing my knife this way against the headlight, taking my time so my knife doesn't jump on me. And again, I'm just following the edge of this headlight all the way around, and this is after I took a little bit of time to set up the edges so that there's no tension and no pullback later on down the line. Because you can stretch this over and lay it down and it'll look great when you're done, nice and clean. It'll look tension free, but especially in the summer, you go out in the sun, that tension is just going to pull the vinyl right back off the edge of your headlight or tail light, whatever you're applying this to. I'm just sealing down the edges since I just cut that. Make sure that they are down. And I'll hit this with heat afterwards again to show you that there's no tension and no pullback on the edges there. Finish up my cut here. Now my headlight is cracked in these back areas here, so I'm just going to follow the missing chunks of my headlight casing at least. Block the camera for a second here. Just trying to find my edge right there. Got this little half moon crater, missing chunk of my headlight casing right there. Now I found the edge. I'm just going to follow this edge all the way. this. Make sure it's still on the edge because I'm pulling it up a little bit. Just kind of give it a little bit of tension. And when I'm cutting, I am pulling the vinyl just a hair to give it just a pinch of tension to make my cut nice and smooth and clean and even. If you try to cut vinyl that's loose, it tends to have these wrinkles that you try to cut through, and it forms kind of like a chattery, jaggedy looking cut. Now that I've cut those edges, make sure my edges are sealed down, press down nicely. Just like that. Boom. Now I'm just going to hit everything with heat one last time to make sure I got it all. And you can see I'm hitting the edges and nothing's pulling back, popping up. And that's because I took a couple extra minutes to pull it back and shrink back the areas where I knew I had tension on the edges, and even double check the areas where I knew I didn't have tension. I just double checked those. Also, heating the whole area will help you find if you have areas that you didn't squeegee properly over and left an air bubble. The heat will make the air in that bubble expand and show and present itself to you so that you can address it right away. So I'm just heating this all over, and I didn't find any bubbles. And so this headlight has been wrapped in VVivid's clear laser holographic tint for headlights and taillights. Alright guys, so now that I've shown you how to wrap a headlight with VVivid's new Ultra Gloss Clear Holographic Laser Headlight and Taillight Tint, what do you think? As far as installation process, it wasn't too bad. Being careful with the holographic effect in this, I do know that working with some holographic material before, along with chrome, for example, they do get easily damaged with heat, excessive heat and excessive stretching, so you have to be a little bit more careful. The stretchable cap, as you saw, I took it off about halfway through. It does stretch really nicely with it, but it got to a point where I felt that I could do a little bit better and I could manipulate the film better with the stretchable cap off, so I took it off there. You can, depending on your skill level and your tolerance on what the film is doing at that time, leave the cap on the entire time. I might try again and try to keep it on the whole time and do it that way. But what do you guys think of this new film? It looks cool. It looks really neat. Maybe I need to post heat it a little bit more, but I was a little bit, it ended up being not quite as clear as I thought it would be. I worked with VVivid's Ultimate Headlight Tint, which is a ultra clear headlight and taillight tint that's a light smoke color, and it has the same nano air release pattern that this film does, but that one, when I applied it, came out so much clearer, with almost no showing of the nano air release pattern in it, unlike this one where that nano air release pattern, you can still kind of see it in the film, and it made my headlight look a little bit cloudy. I mean, it's not bad, but it still looked more cloudy than I thought it would end up being. I thought it would be a little bit more clearer than it ended up being. Maybe I'll give it another go and maybe post heat it a little bit more. I do know that when you heat and post heat and then you let these films sit out in the sun for a little while, the air release patterns do disappear over time, and so maybe that will be the case with this. So let me know what you think of the film. If you've tried it and have experienced the same thing or something different, had better results than me, let me know in the comments down below. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts and your comments on this new film. Alright guys, so I hope this video has been helpful, informative, instructive, and maybe even entertaining for you, value added in some way, shape, or form. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button and the bell notification button so you get notices whenever I post new content to the channel. I've got more videos in the works and on the way that I'd love to share with you. Thanks again guys for watching and for all your support. Have a great day.